All right, good morning and welcome back. It's time for this morning's Bull Run, where we go over the top stories of the day. And joining us to go over our top stories of the day is one of our favorite returning friends of the program, the man, the myth himself, Joe Eppel from Xapo Bank, Zimbabwe. Joe, how are you this morning? Always a pleasure having you on the show.
I am fantastic this morning. Your time, evening, my time, but having a great day overall. How about you, Hank?
Oh, it's Friday. I don't got a lot to complain about. I wish Bitcoin would kind of get off that 100K mark, but in due course. So I'm well, Joe, but we're excited to have you on the show. We got a lot to talk about, my friend. So I was thinking, let me get into that first story, and then we'll jazz about it. Sound good?
Fabulous.
Let's rock and roll. First up, a Samurai wallet developer just got 5 years in prison for writing privacy software. Yeah, in 2025, privacy is now apparently illegal unless it's end-to-end encrypted inside the NSA. Kian Rodriguez, the co-founder of Samurai Wallet, was sentenced for unlicensed money transmitting, or in other words, he helped build a wallet that let people move Bitcoin without the government peeking. And now that's being treated like a felony. Prosecutors claim that Samurai's coin mixing tools helped launder over $237 million tied to everything from darknet markets to fraud and cybercrime. Rodriguez's defense argued it was open source software, not a criminal enterprise, but nuance doesn't play well in federal court. The DOJ wanted a message sent, and well, they got it. 5 years behind bars, the harshest penalty possible. His co-developer, William Hill, faces sentencing next. Same judge, same charges, probably the same outcome. The pair had originally been charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering, which carried up to 20 years, but struck a plea deal to admit the lesser unlicensed business charge instead. Rodriguez's story will probably go down as another cautionary tale in the war between open source freedom and financial surveillance. Because if privacy is a crime, then freedom's already serving time. And that rhymed. And that did too. Yikes. All right, we're bringing Joe back. Joe, let's start with the big one here. A Bitcoin developer just got 5 years in prison for building privacy software. How do you even begin to draw the line between protecting privacy and breaking the law in today's crypto world? It seems like a challenge. What do you think?
I think it's definitely a challenge, and it's one that hasn't been helped by the complete lack of regulatory clarity up until, the very recent history. We've still been debating what's a security and what's not a security, let alone what's money laundering and what's just privately being able to move my money from A to B. It's a concerning, it's almost giving a sense of Russ Ulbricht at some level. I'm hoping we don't have this set a precedent where privacy equals a crime, because that should certainly not be the case.
Yeah, that's certainly a scary precedent. And like you said, this is why we need those rules and regulations in place so that people don't get, put in the clink for things like this, because that's just not right. And for regular Bitcoiners out there that might be watching this, Joe, what does this mean? Does this mean that using privacy tools or mixers could actually put them at risk now, do you think?
I think that's definitely the case, right? I mean, Samurai and look, I mean, if you read the whole article, there was definitely some indication that that this individual, they had a bit of an escape plan, back roads and cash. So they had clues that they were breaking the law. But what I want to point out is that if you're circulating your money through something like a mixer, you could intentionally or unintentionally be having your coins or your UTXOs being mixed up with those that are involved and linkable to financial crime. So if you want to,
Right.
if you don't really know what you're doing and you're looking for a way to move your Bitcoin from A to B and you're wanting to keep it somewhere safe, come to somewhere like Xapo Bank where we're just gonna we're not going to rehypothecate anything. We're going to keep your coins exactly the same way you brought them to us and not mix them up with anything else. Don't trust something that sounds cool unless you actually know what it's up for, what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, that's certainly sound advice. I've trusted far too many things in my life that sounded cool and paid the price for them later. And like you said, at Xapo Bank, you guys play by the rules. So how do you balance giving people financial freedom with staying compliant with governments who clearly want more control? Like, how do you guys go about that?
So, I mean, at Xapo Bank, we've been working closely with the regulators in specific jurisdictions to try and help them develop this regulatory clarity that so that we can reduce some of the ambiguity in the space and some of the risks that people inadvertently end up taking when there is no guiding law, right? If there isn't a clear rule, if there isn't a clear decision that this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, you can very easily find yourself being mixed up in the wrong crowd and taking part in activities that you aren't even aware you shouldn't be taking part in. So with Xapo,
Right.
we work closely with our with lawmakers, with regulators to ensure that we are trying to push for the same kinds of regulation and legislation that governs the existing financial markets, so that there is a very clear line between what is legal and acceptable and what is not. That's
Yeah.
one of the things we do. And the other thing is we stay as abreast and as compliant as we can with all of the existing guidelines and legislation. We are, after all, a fully regulated licensed bank, which means we can't just do whatever we want. We have a regulator that's looking at exactly what we're doing, as well as the fact that we are a fully licensed and regulated VASP. Once more, meaning we have very real constraints and check measures that are applied to us by the regulator. Not that we aren't complying with those already, but we are governed. And I think that is ultimately what the whole industry requires.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why it's the best place to bank your Bitcoin for my dollar. And it kind of reminds me of when I was a kid. Maybe this is just me, but I was always worried that I was like breaking some kind of unwritten rules. So like I'm somebody who thrives in like a situation where I know the law and I know it's illegal and what's not. Like that's why I love Singapore. Everything is so orderly there. They make it very clear. And yeah, I'm still kind of like that today a little bit. Like I'll jaywalk in Los Angeles and I'm like, am I going to get arrested? Because like jaywalking, technically illegal there, but everybody does it. It's wild stuff, but I'm also really paranoid like that. So, you know. Now, moving back to the story, Joe, do you think that cases like this are going to scare developers and builders away from working on Bitcoin related projects because of this kind of ambiguity? Or will it maybe have the opposite effect and then push people to build even more privacy focused tools in the future?
It's a good question. And I mean, if I could see the future, I would already be on my private island. But I think what we've
Yeah,
seen in the
maybe
past, if
both.
we look at the history of what's happened in the cypherpunk and the development of Bitcoin to where it is today, is there have been controversies. There have been people who have been put in jail for working towards this project. And that hasn't stopped development. That hasn't resulted in Bitcoin shutting down and the project ending. So ultimately, no, I don't think it will prevent it. It might give some people pause, and certainly it might give individuals who are working on very privacy related projects, thinking of things like XMR or other associated coins, to understand that the legal system, in its way, might understand that what they are doing is aiding and abetting or creating a mechanism through which people can commit complex financial crimes, and maybe that will result in people changing the direction that they're trying to build something in. But ultimately, it's important to understand
Yeah.
that this wasn't a Bitcoin, a Bitcoin feature. This was a product that was built to enable people to, gain more privacy in terms of the traceability of their specific transactions and the coins that they were using. So my honest answer is I don't think this would necessarily impact the development of Bitcoin further, but perhaps things like
Hmm.
mixes and other very, very privacy-centric tools out there, maybe people will think twice, which I don't think is ultimately a good thing, to be quite honest, in my personal
Yeah. No,
capacity.
I think I would agree with that. It kind of stifles innovation a little bit if everybody's looking over their shoulder anytime they're trying to build something new. And while I don't want you to necessarily predict the future, and I don't expect that of you, Joe, if you had to read the tea leaves, where do you think this goes next? Are we heading toward a future where privacy in Bitcoin becomes kind of a legal gray zone? Or do you think regulators will eventually find a middle ground to settle on here?
It's an interesting question, and I'm glad you don't expect me to see the future, Hank. If you did, I would work my best towards doing it because I would hate to disappoint you. But I think where we
Thank you.
are today with the Trump administration, with the current general easing of restriction on doing business in Bitcoin and doing business in cryptocurrency, I find it hard to see how we are heading towards a shutting down of the space. It feels much more like we are opening things up. That being said, the judicial
Yeah.
system and the setting of judicial precedent happens in a completely different timeline and a completely different time frame.
Right.
And maybe in the next administration, a few years down the line, we see precedent-setting cases such as this potentially being used as the grounds for creating new laws that do further stifle privacy. I do think across the board we've seen a bit of the space tightening around things like even end-to-end encrypted messaging services in certain parts of the world. Governments don't like it when
Hmm.
citizens are unable when they are unable to see exactly what their citizens are doing, even if they want to,
Right.
and even if they feel like whatever activity is happening. So I think this is a tension that will always exist between the free citizen who believes that they have the right to privacy and the right to autonomy, and the government that wants to have more control over that. And I mean, where that ends, I'm not sure, but I think it's certainly a pendulum and it swings from one side to the other. Um,
Hmm.
are governments truly able to stop privacy software, privacy coins? I don't know. I think there's always going to be
Yeah.
another developer out there willing to carry the project forward. So let's see. But my bet would be it won't be the
Yeah.
end of things for sure.
Yeah, as long as we don't see any kind of state mandated CBDCs, then I think we'll at least be okay for now. But you never know.
Uh,
With the with all the good Don Juan has done for the Bitcoin and the crypto space, whatever you want to call it as a whole, he's such a wild card. I just never know. Like, if he got indicted for something tomorrow, he could flip this switch and the whole
oh
ecosystem
yeah.
could change overnight. I just don't know. He's such a wild card. Oh, well, let's go to another wild card in our next story, though. So hang 10 there, Joe. We're going to get back at the end of a second because Elon Musk just got approval for a $1 trillion pay plan, officially making him the richest man alive and potentially the first trillionaire in history. Yeah, the guy who once built a car company on memes and chaos now earns more than the GDP of Sweden, Ireland, and Argentina combined. Tesla shareholders voted more than 75% in favor of that pay package that gives him as much as $878 billion in Tesla stock. It's the largest corporate payout in history, and it passed despite opposition from Norway's sovereign wealth fund and basically every adult in Delaware. Critics called it the world's most expensive participation trophy, saying Tesla's sales are down, safety issues are piling up, and Elon's political rants have turned customers into lucid buyers. But the shareholder crowd wasn't exactly fazed. They chanted his name like it was a Bitcoin halving party, while Elon danced with his robots like a man who's never been told no. Musk says that Tesla's future wasn't about cars anymore, it's about AI, humanoids, and something called a robot army that will stop crimes before they happen. I feel like I've seen this movie before and I know exactly how it ends. Musk also promised the new roadsters by next April, robo-taxi fleets by 2026, and a world where money might not even exist anymore. Yikes. All right, bringing Joe back. Joe, when you see shareholders approving a $1 trillion pay package for Elon Musk, do you view that as a rational bet on future AI and robotics, or is the world's most expensive YOLO trade dressed up as corporate governance? What do you think? Because that's a lot of dough.
Sounds kind of crazy, no matter how you try to sell it. I mean, if you read the
Yeah.
terms and conditions associated with that being achieved, if Musk's leadership is able to get Tesla to, I think it was what, $8.5 trillion in earnings, maybe the guy deserves a $1 trillion pay package, considering where they are today. But no matter how you cut it, it's all sounding a little bit crazy. But
Yeah.
maybe pre-crimes become a thing. We've all seen that movie, and let's see how that ends. But certainly, I think a lot of people's orange flags should be raised at this point.
Yeah. And it's kind of surprising, too, that I feel like it went through so easily. Like, it feels like everybody is really catching wind that there is in fact an AI bubble. You're seeing it all over the place, and they're betting on him and the future of AI almost exclusively, and that seems to be what's kind of propping up, like Tesla's share price, for instance, right now has been close to all-time highs, yet the car company isn't doing too well, and you have like the Kathy Woods out there that are like, well, we're betting on the future. Well, how long can you just keep betting on the future until the future is now and it's still underperforming? I don't know. It's a weird thing, but the guy is he's an operator and he makes things happen. So I respect that at the very least. I mean, he's pitching a future where robot armies, robot taxis, and humanoids are the real business model, not the cars. And from where you sit in Bitcoin banking, Joe, how seriously are you taking this AI robotics pivot as a macro force that could reshape capital flows and wealth?
It's a great question, and I'll answer it the best I can. But I think from where we're sitting at the moment, right, it's hard to say what's gonna be around the corner. I think the AI bubble, the AI question is on a lot of people's minds right now. It's an incredibly highly valued speculative industry, far more than Bitcoin. I would say in terms of actual return and actual seeing what can be done and with the tools that we have at our disposal. I think where we're sitting, I mean, we're leveraging certain AI tools internally to enable us to operate with higher efficiency on internal systems, but nothing on a user-facing perspective. And I think, if the biggest risk I see here is if AI, if this does have a bubble that pops, I think we'll all feel the macroeconomic impact of that. And I think that will not just be specific to Bitcoin. I think that will be the entire US economy taking an absolutely gigantic hit. And that will have ripple effects across the entire world. So if this doesn't pan out in the next, however long the market feels like it has, to actually deliver something that starts to generate masses of revenue, I do think there are long-term implications for every single asset that exists, not just Bitcoin, and not just Xapo Bank. It would definitely define, I think, a financial crisis of our time.
Yeah, no, I keep seeing articles and they're like, you have like the Mag 7 companies and you have all this AI hoopla and they're all just trading $1 trillion back and forth amongst the 7 of them. And that seems to be what's propping up the economy. It's like a bunch of baby birds. Like you have the mama bird who throws up AI into the baby bird. And then that other baby bird throws up the AI into the other mouse. And it just goes around in a circle forever. And that's the economy we're living in right now. So it's got me a little scared, but we'll see. I try to remain optimistic in the face of absolute terror. And one thing that this particular package highlighted for Elon was an extreme concentration of power in just one person, right? This was over capital, data, and infrastructure. So do you see that as a bullish backdrop for decentralized systems like Bitcoin? Or do markets not really make that connection just yet? Because all one man should not have that much power. I think that's what Kanye said.
It's true. That is a direct quote. We won't dive further, but what I would say is, I think, look, to me individually, seeing one man with that much power and the ability to move markets and the ability to push through trillion-dollar pay packages, I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think that's something that ultimately empowers anyone. I think that is creating, a huge concentration of wealth and a huge disparity between an ordinary individual and somebody who has the power to literally move the world's economy. And I don't think any one individual should be empowered to that extent. So I think it makes the case for decentralized systems even greater from my perspective. We shouldn't have one man or one woman that is able to make a call and crash a country's economy. We shouldn't have all of the individuals within that economy whose life savings and whose livelihoods are dependent on the money they have in the bank being wiped out at the whim of an individual. And that's why decentralized assets like Bitcoin are incredibly important for the individual to be able to safeguard their wealth against these sorts of, crazy concentrations of power and money. So let's see. Maybe Elon goes the way Kanye has over the last couple of years, and that wouldn't be good for anyone.
Oh no, if he's got too much money to go the way Kanye does, that could be a real problem. And it's like, to this day, even him, it's like him and Trump can tweet something and move the entire market just by a mere suggestion of something happening. And that to me is pretty scary that that's the world we live in right now. And it's not as bad. I feel like it used to be like Elon in the early 2020s would, type in put like a Bitcoin emoji or something as his profile pic, and then everything would go insane. It's wild times we live in. I don't like it. I want to go back in time. I don't like this era. Now, getting back to the story here, Joe. If Tesla really were to evolve into an AI and robotics giant, do you see a world where companies like that start holding or settling in Bitcoin the way some are beginning to do so with treasuries and cross-border payments?
I think, look, I mean, speculatively, what I've been reading and what I've seen is the future economy where AI plays a massive role, and we have these humanoid robots, and we have these agentic AI systems out there making decisions on behalf of humans or corporations. They're going to be transacting in money, and it's probably not going to be cash, right? They're unlikely to reach for the wallet or hit up the ATM. They're going to be transacting in electronic money and most likely cryptocurrency, and hopefully, whether that's Bitcoin or not, that they are transacting in on a day-to-day basis, which I would assume is a pretty good use case given its market dominance. Ultimately, Bitcoin in that future, right, is the hedge against whatever else you're using on a day-to-day transactional basis. So I do think it paints a future where cryptocurrency has even more utility than it does today, and where Bitcoin being the original cryptocurrency and being, the not a shitcoin cryptocurrency is even more valuable than it is on this given day. So let's see. It's certainly a world that I think all of us find hard to imagine. But if we take educated guesses, I think we can see that the role of cryptocurrency is only going to become even greater.
Yeah, and maybe I'm thinking too far ahead in the future, but it's like if we were to be able to develop like sentient AI, right? Do you think they're at a certain point like they would want to go for digital gold? I don't think even they want to lug around like gold bars. So I feel like Bitcoin is the future currency for the robotic armies, whether we like it or not, and whether that's a good thing or not right now, I don't know. But I don't see them wanting to lug around gold or anything. It's not really their world, but we'll probably have bigger problems on our hand if they start investing in Bitcoin. Dear God, we're getting really close to the end here. I can feel it. All right, moving on to the next story. Joe, hang tight with me one second.
Let's move.
All right, so Jack, let's move. Yeah, I can't talk any more bad stuff about the robots that are listening to us now. All right, so Jack Dorsey's Block just made $2 billion selling Bitcoin, and somehow they're still considering that disappointing. You see, Block reported $6.1 billion in total revenue for the third quarter, with Bitcoin making up nearly 1/3 of it. That means 1 out of every $3 Jack Dorsey earns is literally denominated in magic internet money. Not bad for a guy who quit Twitter to stare at nodes. Now, gross profit was up 18% year over year, powered by a 24% jump from Cash App, the quiet on-ramp that's onboarding more Americans into Bitcoin than Coinbase and the IRS combined. Square, Block's merchant side, also grew 9%, proving that small businesses love Bitcoin almost as much as they hate transaction fees. Block's Bitcoin revenue came in at $1.97 billion, slightly down from last year's $2.4 billion, but costs dropped even more, meaning they're squeezing more profit out of each Satoshi. They now hold nearly 8,800 BTC worth north of $1 billion. That's right, while most corporations hoard dollars, Dorsey's out here dollar cost averaging like a pleb on payday. We're bringing Joe back. Joe, Jack Dorsey's company just made nearly $2 billion from Bitcoin. What does that tell you about how mainstream Bitcoin has become in everyday payments and finance?
I mean, I think it's a clear sign that it's not a fringe operation, right? If we're bringing in that kind of revenue, and we clearly are, then this is not something that random cypherpunks are using to pay for illicit activities. This is a real world asset being traded and being used, being transacted, being used as a payment methodology, as well as being used as a means to store value. And those are all use cases that we see at Xapo Bank in terms of the different kinds of customers that we have coming to us, the different kinds of products that they're using that we offer, and all of the use cases that we offer solutions for. So for sure, I think, we're not talking about a fringe concept here. We're talking about real money being used and real money being made.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this isn't $2 billion, being sold on the Silk Road or anything. I mean, that's a lot of fentanyl, so I hear. So yeah, this is legitimate businesses accruing $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. You and I both know this is the way the world is moving, and it's no surprising it comes from Jack Dorsey's company because he wants Bitcoin to be an everyday method of unit of exchange like the dollar does. He's not satisfied with it just being a store of value. So not too surprising there. And his app, Cash App, is quietly onboarding more people into Bitcoin than almost anyone else right now. So my question for you, Joe, is do you see that as a good sign for long-term adoption? Because it seems like it would be. Or does it maybe create some new risks when people buy Bitcoin but are not fully understanding exactly how it works? Or is that just part of the process that everybody goes through as they get into the space initially?
It's an interesting question, Hank. I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I think signing up more users than ever, and whether that's happening via Cash App or Xapo Bank or Coinbase, I think that shows that there is appetite, there is interest for an alternative in what we see today in our current financial system. People aren't shying away from a new technology like they were a couple of years ago. They are wholeheartedly signing up, and the retail wave is an important one to watch. Whether people really understand what they're getting into, I would hazard a guess and say most people don't really understand the ETF that they have their pension fund invested in at the same time. And now, while that may be a very different financial beast and regulated in very different ways and therefore trusted, I would still hazard a guess that most people have no idea what regulations in fact govern the money that they have invested in whatever ETF or Roth IRA they have, right? So while I do think everybody should have that kind of understanding and that knowledge, I would even go so far as to say it's far easier to understand Bitcoin than it is to understand the way a whole bunch of hedge funds operate and the different kinds of credit default swaps and all sorts of things that I myself personally don't understand that go into creating the kind of economy that we have today. So in its essence, I think you don't have to be a mathematical genius to understand Bitcoin. You just have to put a little bit of effort in and read a couple of blogs, and you have a pretty good understanding of what this thing does. Do you need to know how it works in order to use it to buy a coffee? I really don't think that's necessary. Do you need to understand how it works in order to safeguard your wealth against depreciation? Probably you should do a bit more research or go to a place that can help you understand and help you take proper measured decisions that hedge that risk for you.
And you make a really good point that I guess I never really thought of before, Joe, that, if we look at traditional finance over the years, they don't teach it in schools, which is insane. Like at least here in the United States, they don't teach you anything about taxes. You might take like an accounting class, but I remember I took one in high school. It was worth nothing. So in traditional finance, it seems like they've been purposely not teaching people what it means or how to use it or what it's all about, right? But with Bitcoin, ever since I've been in this space, it's actually felt the polar opposite. It's always been Bitcoiners and people in the industry eager to say, hey, this is how this works. This is why this works. So I wonder why that's not kind of ringing a red flag for a lot of people. Like, hey, traditional finance has kind of never really made it easy for us to understand how it operates, yet Bitcoiners everywhere are being completely transparent about it. And they're like, this is why Bitcoin's great. Here's how you can use it. Here's a million resources that you can use to educate yourself to understand it better. So I think it's like kind of an interesting thing right now that I don't think people are taking into account. The government doesn't want you to understand this stuff because ultimately they profit from it and big businesses and institutions do. While on the other side, Bitcoin is for everybody. And people are actually spreading the gospel because it is a fair system that we all need to be able to learn, and there are resources for that, I think, more than there ever was in TradFi, at least, with YouTube channels and stuff. That's changing a little bit. But that, again, is the people working on behalf of other people, not the corporations who are trying to confuse us. I hate those guys. So yeah, no, that's super interesting. I appreciate your point there, Joe. And, another thing that was said in this story was that sales for Block even dipped a little bit. However, their profits are continuing to rise, meaning that they're becoming more efficient with Bitcoin. So my question for you is, does that signal to you that we're kind of entering a stage where Bitcoin-based business models can actually be more like sustainable and profitable long term? Are we kind of starting to figure that out in the space?
Also an interesting question. I mean, again, all I can do is give you my opinion, and I think look, I think if any business that's all I can give you. I think honestly, I think if any business is a poster child for this, it is Block, and it is Jack Dorsey's empire, and he's doing that very intentionally. He wants
Yeah.
to be the poster child for a successful Bitcoin business and a successful Bitcoin treasury company because his entire business model is built around Bitcoin being successful as a method of transaction, as well as a
Right.
way in which corporate organizations can potentially hedge and keep Bitcoin on their balance sheet without drawing the ire of their shareholders and or their regulators. So I think if anyone is going to be successful at this, it's going to be Block. It's going to be Jack Dorsey. It's going to be their business model, which is exceptional. And I
Yeah.
think if they can set the example and if they can show that this is a very legitimate and a very realizable way of running a business, that will set a path that others will follow. No one loves following the leader more than humans. When we see someone being
Yeah.
successful, we say, amazing, let me do what they did. So I truly hope that Jack is successful, and I'm sure he will be. He has some of the best people in the business working with him, and I'm hopeful that we will continue to see a success story come out of that.
Yeah, yeah, he's definitely one of the more important stewards of the space, right? Those guys that are leading the charge and showing people like, hey, this can be profitable and this can work, akin to, Michael Saylor, who's like the holy prophet of Bitcoin right now. So yeah, no, I think you're right. If anyone's going to do it, it's Jack, and we're glad to have him and his team leading the way in that particular front. And speaking of people leading the way, your team at Xapo has built a Bitcoin bank. Dorsey's team has built a Bitcoin payments company. So what do you think traditional banks are still missing about this industry that innovators like you and the team at Xapo and the team at Block are already understanding?
I think the biggest difference is at Xapo. I mean, we've been around since 2013. Our founder, Wences Cesares, he saw Bitcoin as being the future, and he saw it early. The way he made a lot of early bets and made a lot of great bets as a result. At Xapo Bank and I'm assuming at places like Block, we've been seeing Bitcoin as the future and building for it for the last decade. Other places, I think, are only just starting to catch up and catch on. I see other large financial institutions, some of the biggest in the world, are now trying to dip their toes into the orange stream of Bitcoin. But they,
Mm-hmm.
are 10 years behind the rest of us. So at Xapo Bank, we've been building the bank of the future, and we have done so successfully. It exists. You can come to us and open an account. You can keep your Bitcoin with us. You can borrow against it. You can get some of the safest security on the market. And you can even spend it if that's what you want to do with our Xapo Bank card or via the Lightning Network. So it's all here. We have it already. Come sign up. Let's get
Yeah.
you on.
Yeah, I keep telling everyone the orange stream is nice. Get in, the water is very comfortable. So jump in, guys. We'd love to have you. All right, we got one more story, Joe. So hang tight. I'll be back at you in a second because JPMorgan now says that that Bitcoin is undervalued and should be trading at around 170K. Let's all just pause for a second, close our eyes, and just really let that sink in. JP Morgan said that Bitcoin is undervalued and should be trading at 170K. I never thought I'd hear that. So remember, this is the same bank whose CEO once called Bitcoin a fraud, a pet rock, and probably a few things that he can't say on CNBC. Now, according to their new research note, Bitcoin is trading below its fair value relative to gold once you adjust for volatility, because gold's price spiked to record highs in October, and with that came higher volatility, meaning it's now riskier to hold than Bitcoin. The world's upside down when gold, the thing that doesn't even move, is apparently more volatile than Bitcoin. Now, analysts said that Bitcoin's risk-adjusted ratio has dropped to 1.8, meaning it carries 1.8 times the risk of gold. So to level that out, Bitcoin's market cap should rise by roughly 67%, which translates to a fair value of about 170K. Or in plain English, if gold can rally while shaking like a meme stock, Bitcoin deserves a bit of a promotion. Meanwhile, Galaxy Digital lowered its forecast from 185 to 120K, claiming that we've entered Bitcoin's maturity era, where ETF inflows and slower volatility mean a steadier climb. So on one side, Jamie Dimon's team says 170K is fair value. On the other time, the crypto native firm says 120K is more realistic. Either way, both are saying the same thing. The floor is 100K and the ceiling is officially gone. Bringing Joe back. Joe. JPMorgan, the same bank whose CEO Jamie Dimon called Bitcoin a fraud and a bunch of other things, now says it's undervalued and should be worth 170 grand. What do you think has changed in Jamie Dimon's mind, or in JPMorgan's notes, to actually say this now? That's a big flip.
It's a massive flip, and I mean, I think we shouldn't underestimate how consequential JP Morgan, the bank that banks countries, saying the Bitcoin is undervalued is, especially considering their bearish approach and attitude over the last decade, and in fact, fairly mean things said about Bitcoin. It hurt our feelings a bit. So I'm heartened to see JP Morgan changing its tune. What does it mean in terms of the pricing that we're seeing and so on remains to be seen, but certainly it sounds like it's a really positive sign that either Bitcoin is undervalued or gold is overvalued. Either way, maybe buying
Right.
Bitcoins is not a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, and their reasoning is that Bitcoin, they say, is now less risky than gold when you adjust for volatility. Do you agree with that idea, that Bitcoin is actually becoming the more stable asset of the two?
That's an interesting idea. And look, I think gold is definitely incredibly highly leveraged and traded at the moment. And that probably means it's in for a bit of a price correction at some point in the future, if anything, if history is anything to go by. Actually, you still got me? Sorry, I think my internet dropped
Yeah,
there for a
I got
second.
you. I can hear you. Yep, we got you.
Okay, great. Okay, great.
Yep.
Sorry, Hank. I think, I mean,
Okay.
ultimately, I lost my train of thought there with the internet dropping. So I'm going to have to ask you to
Yeah,
either ask
no,
the
no,
question
no,
again
no.
or ask me a different one that I can
Yeah.
throw my opinion at.
No, we'll move on to the next one. Yeah, it's just they were just saying, we've seen gold jump so much this year, and if you adjust for volatility, we're saying, is Bitcoin becoming the more stable of the two? After this year, it kind of remains to be seen. But I think almost more importantly is now we've got banks who were fully against Bitcoin just like 5, 6 years ago, calling for Bitcoin at 170K, while crypto firms are saying 120K. While both are six-figure predictions, it makes me wonder, like, from what you're seeing at Xapo, do clients even think in terms of price targets anymore? Or are they just focused on the long game? Because everybody has them. You have traditional finance operations that were against it. They even have them now. Are we past price predictions and we're just focusing on the long game here?
I think that's exactly what we're seeing. I mean, whether we're talking about 170K, 120K, a couple of years ago, we couldn't even have this conversation without being laughed out of the room. So what we're seeing and what Zappa has been built around is playing the long game, is giving our users, our clients, our members, wherever they are in the world, the ability to play the long game of Bitcoin and wealth creation, and do it with a trusted and the safest possible place to do that on the planet. I think seeing what we're seeing coming out of JP Morgan, and seeing what we're seeing in terms of other price predictions, I think it's becoming less relevant. And I think the relative instability of the rest of the global economy is helping make the case for the stability and the utility of alternatives that aren't, completely embroiled in everything else that's going on.
Yeah. I feel like those price predictions were really important until we hit that 100K level. Like, I think that was we all know it's a big psychological level, but I think it's a big enough number where people are like, oh man, this Bitcoin thing, guess it's not going away, huh? Like, this must be here to stay. And I think once we hit that, it's like, it's all good fodder. We love to chat about it. But yeah, I think it's kind of the proof is in the pudding now. Like, it's going to be a long and slow uptick to the right, or that's how it's seeming. It's seeming is right now is, we have a lot of analysts out there that are calling this the maturity era for Bitcoin, which I guess is meaning slower moves. We got more ETF flows and just less drama overall. Does that kind of line up with what you're seeing inside Xapo Bank right now?
I would say so. I mean, certainly when we have institutions, like BlackRock having ETFs, and we have the kind of inflows we're seeing on the institutional side, what that means is there's a huge appetite for whatever liquidity is available on the market. And I'm no day trader or financial analyst, but if I do the simple maths in my mind, if there's high demand and people want it, it means that surely the price isn't gonna be quite as volatile as it has been in the past. We might see price corrections. We might see moves that still seem large to people who are used to TradFi. But from a Bitcoin perspective, I think it feels like we're entering the calm, cool waters of the institutional era, where a price drop really just presents an opportunity for a big corporation with millions of and potentially billions of dollars sitting on their balance sheet to scoop up the asset of the future, which ultimately buoys the price and ensures that we ultimately enjoy relative stability. So that's certainly, I mean, what I think if we think back a couple of weeks to the massive price correction and the liquidations that happened, and the market kind of went and recovered very, very quickly, precisely because there was so much demand on the sidelines waiting to scoop up that cheap on sale Bitcoin. So
Right.
honestly, it does feel like a maturation, and it does feel like a new era. Maybe Bitcoin is a teenager. It's time. It's
Right.
time
Oh
for us to
God.
treat it as I know, it could be rough, but we're starting to grow.
Yeah, it gets me a little sad, thinking about our baby Bitcoin maturing and all growing up. But you know what I'm not sad about, Joe? In fact, I'm happy that we had you here today. It's always an absolute pleasure having you here on the Blockchain Report. We love having your insight, expertise, and hot takes and everything that's going on in the world around us. So we certainly appreciate you and your efforts this morning. And I'm sure, as always, you've gained a couple new followers or fans in our show today. So for those that haven't gotten enough Joe from Zimbabwe, what's the best place I can send them to get more of your hot takes and what you and the team over at Xapo are up to?
Thanks, Hank. You're too kind. You can find me on X at Zimbo Joe, and you can find Xapo Bank at Xapo Bank app on X, or come to xapobank.com, and you can open your account. And if you open your account and say you found us on Roxam, I'll happily reach out to you and we can have a chat about anything you'd like.
Amazing, Joe. Well, you're the best, and we certainly appreciate you and your time. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, and have a great weekend, my friends. Get out of here. I know it's late your time, so you deserve to kick up your heels. It's Friday after all.
Thanks, Hank. You too. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers, Joe. See you next time. All right, gang, we're going to take a break here at the Blockchain Report, but when we're back, more of today's top stories, and our second special guest of the day will be joining us to talk shop. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after this.